Kevin Holden. He was awesome with us last time, and we expect it once again here today as we break down a really, really interesting slate in the world of college basketball. Of course, something that we have been looking forward to since the season tipped off. It's the ACC SEC Challenge. Of course, the SEC last year put 14 teams in the NCAA tournament, a overall record. But getting a real tough challenge here was some of the cream of the crop in the ACC. Case in point, the defending national champion Florida Gators taking on the Duke Blue Devils. Kevin, I love this matchup. Where it sits on the calendar, obviously no football to interfere with it. What do you make here of this matchup as the Duke Blue Devils take on the champs?
Look, I know that teams change from year to year, and I know that all these all these Duke freshmen that we see here are not the same Duke freshmen that were here, a year ago. But the difference, though, is this, I think, was a game that Duke would have wanted to play in April in San Antonio as opposed to, in December. And that's, to me, that means something to the program, right? That's something that John Shire and the returning players can impart, like this is, if they want to, play for a national championship, well, there you go. That's the team that'll, that's the measuring stick. And it was a year ago. Both teams are different, but that's at least the matchup that was still fresh in some minds. When Florida played on that last day and Duke was eliminated, one round before in the Final Four. So it's big in that way. And it's also, nobody that I have seen in college basketball tests their players the way Duke does in terms of the opponents, in terms of the location, in terms of the stages. I think that this is one of the biggest tests that they'll face. And again, you said it. It's perfectly placed on the schedule. Conference play is just over there, and they've had a chance to warm up now with the first 6 or 7 games of the year. This is perfect. This is your litmus test. You will learn about your team in this game.
Kevin, I think it was about 1 month ago around this time in the day when I asked you, I was like, is Cam Boozer just Cooper Flagg 2.0, just right back 1 year after? Now that we're a month into the season and seeing what he did against a good Arkansas team on Thanksgiving, what have you made of the freshman so far this year?
Yeah, so when we talked that first time about this a month ago, he had just dropped all those points and rebounds. It was more than 20 points, more than 20 rebounds against Tennessee in an exhibition. And I thought, okay, ton of factors there, right? Like, it's an exhibition. Tennessee's like, okay, great. Have your points, have your rebounds. I figured he was a very good player, but I didn't know if he was one of the best in the country. And now that we've seen, a handful of regular season games, yeah, I think he's one of the best players in the country. He is. What I think is interesting about Cam Boozer is obviously the point totals are there, but John Shire has spent, going back to ACC media days, he has spent a lot of time hammering home what he calls the other 98%, which is what we all care about and what we watch on the news at night and on our sports shows are the highlights, the three-pointers and the dunks. But there's so much else that goes into winning a basketball game. So going back to your Cooper Flagg comparison, where Cooper Flagg was the best in the country was all that other stuff. He could score, but he could do so many other things, fundamental things that helped his teammates and, put them in better position. And Cam Boozer's becoming that player too. I think the scoring is a little higher than it was for Flagg at this point, but the other parts are still developing for him. But yeah, you're talking about one of the best in the country, and it's just like they grew him in a lab and just plugged him right in, like, oh, Cooper's gone. Here's the next one. Here's Cam Boozer.
Absolutely. This game is at Cameron Indoor, and what I love about these home and home matchups in this specific ACC SEC challenge is the fact that you do get a true home court environment. I like a lot of these neutral site games that played at Madison Square Garden, games that are played at United Center there in Chicago. How important is this game to be at Duke, and what do you expect it to be like? I know it's not an ACC game. Of course, the Baby Blues not in town, but it is the defending champions that are in. Do you expect that atmosphere to match what we're seeing as far as on paper with these two teams on the court?
I really do expect it to be peak intensity from a noise and an intimidation part. I got to say that in sports, you hear about all of these iconic venues and home places that you think are going to be huge advantages. Lambeau Field in football because of the temperature and all that. Like, some of those I feel are good and some of those are extremely overrated. And then the first time I walked into Cameron Indoor to cover a game, I've been at this job about a year, so my first game there was early January of this year. And wow. Okay, so let me explain the way this works, right? Like, for us working, watching games, covering games, you have a seat at press row, as you know, no matter where you are in the country. At Cameron Indoor, that seat at press row has about that much room between where you are and where the fans are. And I have a video of fans, like, doing the Cameron crazies are like right here, like right over my shoulder, jumping up and down and doing all this crazy stuff. They were close enough that when a player walked by, they would reach over my shoulder to high five the player. Dude, it's incredible. And but what they've done is maintained the 1949-ness of of the interior of the arena. Obviously, some of the other stuff has progressed through the decades, but the core of that gym still feels like a television movie. It still feels like you're going back in time. So it is, again, to say all that, to say it is a massive disadvantage for the opposition, because there is no place I've ever covered college basketball that feels or sounds like Pete Cameron Indoor, and Florida's going to learn that tonight.
Absolutely. John Shire got a chance to speak about his superstar in Cam Boozer and maybe some of the things you will see out of him tonight.
He's been so coachable from day one. You're lucky when you're coaching a guy where he's harder on himself than anybody else could be. And, we actually were talking earlier. I mean, what he's done has been incredible. I think him and I both know there's been more there, as crazy as that sounds. And I still think there's a lot more there. And he's, for me, the biggest difference, though, for a freshman is learning how to play through contact and the decision-making, the decisiveness. He can do so many different things. Obviously, he's shown he can shoot the ball from three, right? He can create his own shot. But I thought tonight he was a great connector for us with quick decisions, putting pressure on the defense, and then really opening up a lot for other guys to drive, shoot, make plays as well.
Kevin, this is going to be Duke's second straight game against an SEC opponent. They played another pretty good team in Arkansas on Thanksgiving. What did you make out of the Blue Devils' performance in Chicago?
I think they're an improved team over where they were in the first couple of games to start the year. And it's the way the schedule builds up, right? You face the Western Carolina type opponents early on as you're beginning to round into form. I think John Shire's goal was to know what he had and how the rotations would look and how the playing time would divvy up before they got to conference play. And what you started to see against Arkansas was not just a group of talented individuals, but a team that understood playing together, that the roles are beginning to be defined. They're starting to come together. And Florida's going to be another one of those, win or lose. I think he's starting to understand exactly how everybody fits, into the different pieces of the puzzle. It's a great time of year because these games only get more intense and they only mean more as they get into conference play. But yeah, that Arkansas game told me that, not that it's a shock. John Shire's an organized guy, but he's, that game plan is in stage 2 or 3. It's taken off.
For those that aren't in and around that Raleigh area, they're in North Carolina. Of course, at this time of year, we're talking about big basketball games, but the football team is playing in an ACC championship game there at the end of the week. What's it been like over there for those that wear that Duke blue, and just the overall sense of where athletics stand with the Blue Devils?
All right, so I got to go back to last Monday. Is the perfect story that will fit this, what's going on here. Last Monday, Manny Diaz had his last regular season press conference. On Mondays, Manny Diaz would talk about the upcoming opponent. He would field a variety of questions, no different this past Monday. And somebody said to him, like 2/3 of the way through, "So have you talked with your team about the ACC championship game?" And he's like, "No, like we haven't said a word about it." Yeah, he goes, "Too many things have to happen. The stars have," this is a direct quote.
Right.
"The stars have to align. The octopus has to pick the Duke hat." Like, that was his line. He's like, 20 things have to happen that are not under his control. And so then Saturday night, after they had beaten Wake Forest, there's a little clip of it on Twitter. He says to his guys, he's like, "So Practice Sunday? Nah, maybe not. But stay by your phones just in case. And then, of course, SMU misses a field goal so that Cal wins, and the Stars did align, and the Octopus did pick the Duke hat, and here they are. So it's just a weird, wild, like, bonus week for everybody involved. It's cool for us. We get to go to Charlotte on Saturday, but I do think it's healthier for the university because obviously Duke basketball just casts a shadow over everything else.
Yeah.
It's just a massive entity. But football now has a 9-win season and an ACC football championship game appearance in the back-to-back years. So it's not just a one-off thing. I think Manny Diaz is building something that can be consistent there.
Kevin, I know some people are going to look at this ACC championship game and be like, how in the world is a 5-loss team in the ACC championship? And honestly, I thought about that for a second being an ACC guy. I'm like, man, we go from Clemson a few years ago, just rolling everybody to, just pure chaos. But do you think there's any chance that if Duke were to win this game over Virginia that they'd make the college football playoff, or do you think it's going to be 2 G5 teams?
Yeah, I don't see it happening. Yeah. I just don't. And it's a little bit unfortunate because it would be a nice reward for them because they did exactly what they were supposed to do, right? What was in front of them was to win the ACC, and they're going to do in this scenario. They do that, then they would say, all right, now what? Give us what we're going to get. But I just look, it's chaotic enough. But you throw a 5-loss Duke team into the mix, like it is the craziest thing in the world this time of year because suddenly James Madison and Tulane really care about the ACC championship game because it affects what happens to them in their postseason. It's one of the coolest things I think about college football. One of the wildest is like when SMU played Cal, that game that got Duke into it, we were riveted. We were in the middle of a show here and no one could work. We were watching them kick that last field goal and jumping around like we were players. Like it's a wild time. But no, to answer the question, I think it improves their bowl standing a little, but no, I don't think they're a playoff team.
Absolutely. Kevin, we appreciate your insight so much. We'll see you again very, very soon. By the way, we'll break down another big matchup here in the ACC SEC Challenge. Can't
wait. I'll just stay right here if it's all right. I've got some crackers and some soda over here. I'll just hang out.
I love it. Hey, hang tight there. We'll see you again coming up tomorrow.